if the ANC was a corrupt party, not individuals, the ANC as an organization, if it was a corrupt party, we would not be poor. We would be tapping into the resources of the state as a governing party.
So this evening we ask that you support us by making a contribution to the work of our organization.
What if the ruling party of South Africa is not just struggling politically, but is desperate for money? What if power no longer comes from the ballot box alone, but from who can afford to sit closest to it? Imagine a political party admitting it is broke while wealthy businessmen quietly step in to keep the lights on. One controversial funder exposed, another new face suddenly elevated. Closed-door fundraising, public denials, internal fights. This is not gossip. This is not rumors from the streets. These are real names, real events, and real questions that South Africans are asking. Why is the ANC asking for donations right after January 8? Why are businessmen funding political celebrations? Why do controversial figures keep appearing around power, then quietly disappear? And most importantly, what is the price of access to the president? Tonight, we are pulling the curtain back, slowly, carefully, and responsibly. Subscribe now, because this story doesn't end with one name. It exposes a system under pressure. South Africa is angry. South Africa is tired. And more than ever, South Africans are asking questions. Questions about leadership, questions about money, questions about who really holds power behind the scenes. For 31 years, the African National Congress has governed this country. It came to power on a promise of freedom, dignity, and opportunity. But today, the party faces its biggest crisis of trust, not because of opposition attacks, but because of its own actions and its own admissions. The ANC has publicly acknowledged a financial crisis. President Cyril Ramaphosa has openly appealed for donations, saying the party is struggling to fund its activities after the January 8th celebrations. Let me ask you this. How does a ruling party with access to power, influence, and state resources end up broke?
If the ANC was a corrupt party, not individuals, the ANC as an organization, if it was a corrupt party, we would not be poor. We would be tapping into the resources of the state as a governing party.
And who steps in when the ruling party is desperate? This video is not about slogans. It is not about political hatred. It is about patterns, timing, and connections. Because when money enters politics quietly, truth often leaves the room just as quietly. Tonight, we will walk through who is funding the ANC and why. Why controversial figures keep appearing around party events. Why one funder disappears and another rises, and why internal ANC tensions are exploding at the worst possible time. As you watch, ask yourself, is this transparency or controlled survival? Is the ANC reforming or just replacing faces? Stay with me until the end, because this story is not about one businessman. It is about the future of political power in South Africa. The first warning sign did not come from opposition parties. It came from inside the ANC itself. After the January 8th celebrations, President Cyril Ramaphosa openly told supporters that the ANC is financially struggling. The party, he said, needs donations to survive. This admission alone should have stopped the country in its tracks, because the ANC is not a small organization. It is the governing party. It controls national, provincial, and local government structures. So ask yourself, how does a ruling party with access to power, influence, and state resources end up broke? The ANC says it needs money to run its offices, pay staff, campaign, and organize political programs. That sounds reasonable on the surface. But the timing raises eyebrows. The appeal for money came immediately after lavish January 8th celebrations, large stages, security, transport, entertainment, logistics. Now, think about this carefully. Was the party already in trouble before January 8, or was the spending itself deepened the crisis? Soon after, reports emerged about exclusive fundraising events, closed-door dinners, high-end golf days, and elite gatherings where access came at a premium. Not for ordinary members, not for volunteers, but for those with deep pockets. This creates a dangerous imbalance. When a party depends on a few wealthy individuals to survive, it becomes vulnerable. Vulnerable to influence, vulnerable to pressure, vulnerable to compromise. Let me ask you directly, when political survival depends on donors, who really sets the agenda? The voters or the funders? This financial desperation did not happen in a vacuum. It created the perfect conditions for powerful business figures to step in, and one of those figures would soon shock the nation.
Every political story has a moment where one name changes everything. In this story, that name is Vusimuzi Matlala. He is not an elected leader. He does not wear ANC colors on the podium. Yet his name suddenly entered the center of South Africa's political conversation. Matlala is known as a businessman, a tender tycoon, someone who built wealth through government-linked contracts. But he is also a deeply controversial figure. He has faced serious allegations, including corruption and fraud. He has also been linked through court processes and investigations to allegations involving violence in his personal life. These are allegations, not convictions. But in politics, perception matters as much as facts. Ask yourself, should a party claiming to fight corruption accept funding from someone surrounded by such controversy? What shocked many South Africans was not just Matlala's background, it was what he revealed. Before a parliamentary ad hoc committee, Matlala confirmed that he had funded ANC activities, including last year's January 8th celebration. Not rumors, not speculation, his own words.
Do you ever pay for that January 8?
Yes, I did.
How much?
I will say between 150 and 200. I'm not quite sure about it.
A man facing serious allegations was helping finance the ruling party's most symbolic event. Let that sink in. Did the ANC ask where the money came from? Or did they look away because the party needed funds? Matlala went further. He described how money moved through political spaces, how payments were made, how influence and protection were discussed behind closed doors. His testimony painted a picture, not of a clean system, but of a murky political environment where money, power, and survival collide. Some people see Matlala as a whistleblower. Others see him as a man trying to save himself. What do you think? Was he exposing corruption or settling political scores? Was he a funder by choice or by necessity? Matlala didn't just speak about donations. He spoke about money changing hands in ways that made many uncomfortable. He described payments, protection, pressure, and power struggles. Not just business, not just politics, but survival within a system. Important question. When business people fund political events, what do they expect in return? Is it influence, protection, excess, or silence? Because in politics, money is never just money. Here's where things get even more interesting. After Matlala's revelations, his presence disappears. Suddenly, a new name takes the stage at the ANC January 8 event, My Soul. A businessman reportedly involved in mining, a man with no public criminal scandal attached to his name. And this year, he is not just funding, he is addressing the masses. Why him? Why now? Ask yourself, Is this a clean break or just a cleaner face? Did the ANC replace controversy with convenience?
Mining is one of the most politically sensitive industries in South Africa. Licenses, regulations, environmental approvals, labor disputes. Now imagine a mining businessman funding the ruling party. Let's think carefully. Can a mining tycoon fund a political party and still expect neutral treatment? Where do politics end and business begin? Or do they merge quietly behind closed doors? History tells us mining is one of the most politically sensitive industries in South Africa. Licenses, regulations, environmental approvals, labor disputes. Now imagine a mining businessman funding the ruling party. Let's think carefully. Can a mining tycoon fund a political party and still expect neutral treatment? Where do politics end and business begin? Or do they merge quietly behind closed doors? History tells us when money and power mix, corruption often follows, even if it starts quietly. While funding questions swell, the ANC is also fighting itself. Gwede Mantashe goes on national television and says South African youth are lazy and waiting for government jobs instead of creating opportunities. In a country where youth unemployment is over 40%. Ask yourself, is this leadership or disconnection? How do young people feel hearing this from a man in power? The backlash was immediate. The ANC Youth League reacted, Fikile Mbalula stepped in, statements were released, clarifications demanded. This wasn't just about words. It exposed deep frustration inside the party. Question for you. If leaders cannot agree publicly, how united is the ANC really? Is this the sound of a party under pressure, cracking? Let's connect everything. A ruling party admitting it is broke. Wealthy donors gaining access. A controversial funder exposed, then replaced. A new funder with unanswered questions. Internal fights, public confusion, youth anger. This is not chaos by accident. Final question before we end. Are we watching the ANC reform itself or desperately survive? This video is not telling you what to think. It is asking you to think. Because democracy does not die loudly. It fades when questions go unanswered. Comment below. Do you trust ANC funding transparency? Is this normal politics or something darker? Subscribe for more deep political breakdowns because the truth doesn't trend unless we push it.